Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. Today is Thursday, February the 10th in the year of our Lord 2023. And we thank you for joining us this evening. The title of our podcast for tonight is going to be The State of the Union, from based on what the president talked about 2 nights ago, and the State of the Union from a soluble perspective, if you will. Now, I mean, like us here at Soluble, I mean, I'm pretty sure, the vast majority of the nation saw this circus-like atmosphere that was created by the Republican Party. And it's a sad time in America when we see this. It's really a sad time in America. Weak leadership, having to constantly shush House members as if they were bratty school kids who had to keep being reprimanded by the teacher to calm down and be quiet. And sadly, this is where we're at as far as the example for our children. Speaking of such, I mean, talk about draining the swamp. If this is what draining the swamp looks like, I hate to see it when it's full, when it's not drained. If this is what the remnant of a drained swamp looked like, I mean, for the love of decorum, for the love of etiquette, what is really happening here? And to the American voter, Republican, Democrat, Independent alike, this gets us nowhere as a country. This does nothing to strengthen us. This says nothing about United States written on it at all. Nothing about this says united as far as the states. And that's where we want to be, the direction that we want to head back in. That's where we want to be going. And that's our goal here at Soluble, is to bring back better bipartisanship, better ideas being worked across the aisles, if you will, for common sense, legislation and bills that, work for all Americans of all stripes. But, this was just ridiculous. I mean, can someone in the Republican Party, can someone in the district in which Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene represents, can someone let her know that, pretty much America and the world has moved on from Trumpism? This is a residual effect of that. This is a residual effect of it. And, she's so shallow. God bless her heart. She's so shallow that she doesn't realize that we've moved on. She's still stuck in a time warp where, there was once upon a time where this was rewarded with a vote, with the roll of the dice. Let's take a chance, if you will. Here's a former president who is, a very flawed candidate. But, to the American people's eye, he was that businessman, that guy who had been there and done that, and he would be good for America because he knows business. At least, that's the way I got it in a lot of the circles that I dwelt during, the 2016 campaign. But, my word, it was just catcalling, just blurting out, calling the president a liar. You've never seen anything like this. If you've seen it from the other side, we have to call it out. And as far as, the Democratic voter, take a long look at this. Take a serious look at what we have opposing us, as if to say, if it's not us in power, which we are now, And if it's not us in power, if we don't continue to vote ourselves in power through this party, this is what the opposite looks like. No respect. No respect for the office. No one said respect the person, because we know we don't elect kings in this country. Excuse me. But none whatsoever respect for the office of the President of the United States of America. And, it gets old. It sounds like, we're beating a dead horse here at Soluble. But it is what it is. This is the lingering effect of Trumpism. No respect. And if it is where, and you have weak leadership with the speaker, he's shushing. He's shushing. And to no to little effect. To none to little effect. Now, we have the power, we the people, we have the power to put Republicans in the majority. I mean, as you were, to put Republicans in the minority. We have the power to do that. We've shown it. We've shown it over the last several elections, starting in the former president's midterm. We've shown it. And, here's evidence, and we continue to show it. I mean, where does this get us as far as trying to move the country forward? And, you have to ask yourself, is this kind of behavior, kind of childlike, rude behavior at the State of the Union address, is this, what does it have to do with patriotism? What does it have to do with love for one's country? Show me, tell us here at Soluble, so we can understand from a Republican perspective, from a fellow Democratic perspective. What does it have to do with patriotism? Then one could understand. If one can listen to another say, he or she does that at the State of the Union address for the love of one's country. And let me demonstrate to you what I mean by that. Because, looking at this behavior, you would think that, it's anything but love for country. But let me show you. We don't have that person. So it's not hard to tell. I mean, this is when it's acceptable. This is when it's acceptable, or should be, to any red-blooded American, where, one can demonstrate and show that this behavior is in defense of our country, for the love of our country. And it doesn't have anything to do with it. So, it shouldn't be accepted. But here we are. Here we are with, even with 4 years there, the former president should have prioritized making sure that the swamp was drained. This was a campaign promise. Or was it just some empty slogan? That the president just, where he was just spewing words to see where they were splattered and didn't mean any of it. Because that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. And we know, from a Republican point of view, that the country is not going the way that they would like it to go. And we see, the smoke and mirrors game. We see them, preach about and rave about something like the border, for example. And then, as soon as they get a slight majority somewhere, anywhere where they can get in, it's attacking the IRS right off the bat. Money that the IRS desperately needs to get current, to get more advanced machinery, to hire people. So, it's figured out. If you want to, just like read the tea leaves, if you will. You see a party here that's saying one thing and doing another. Now, the president has let us know on Tuesday night that the State of the Union is strong. The State of the Union is strong. The dollar is strong. Now, here a couple weeks back, the job report came out. And based on what the jobs report said, then we had leading economists. And these are people who, play with numbers, year round. This is what they do for a living. Leading economists have come forward and said, let's have a clean spending bill. Let's don't, attach strings to the debt ceiling. Let's do not play games with it or flirt with not paying the nation's bills. Who else would you want to believe? We're not looking at political leanings here because, we don't try to, get into which way an economist is voting because, we should all take it for granted. It should all be a given that they're voting for America to win. At the end of the day, it's not about, a political stripe or affiliation. They're voting for America to win. So if the leading economists are coming out and saying this, it's not just, something that the president is trying to sell. But, lo and behold, the Republicans are going to go into their playbook. And, it's the same old playbook. And so, if they can run it on you, then it's to your stupidity. Excuse me, for lack of a better word. It's for your own ignorance. Because they're going to go into their playbook, regardless of what the leading economists have said about the economy. And about the, when it comes to the State of the Union, when it comes to the economy, they're going to go into their playbook, and they're going to come up with some fancy wording or some fancy talking point, and they're going to put it on a continuous loop, and no matter where you see a Republican at the podium, at the lecture, on the House floor, on the Senate floor, they're going to keep feeding you the same thing over and over and over and over. And this is how they wear you down. But make no mistake about it. If you can't take the president of the United States' word for it, being an unbiased American, regardless of political affiliation, if you can't take the president of the United States' word for it to his fellow Americans, where do you fall on believing the leading economists? Where do you fall on that? The jobs report came out. And, there's one thing we all know, numbers don't lie. And so as soon as leading economists saw that jobs report, they requested or suggested a clean spending bill with no strings attached, to pay the nation's bills. So, as voters and as, Americans, when it comes to pocketbook issues, there's only one way to solve it, ladies and gentlemen. There's only one way to solve it. You see the smoke and mirrors. You see the Republicans ready to put a falsehood on a continuous loop. And so, where we're at now, the State of the Union, from the inside, from the commander-in-chief, is that the State of the Union is strong. Do we have the reason to believe anything otherwise? The jobs report backs him up. Leading economists backs him up. So, we have to give credit where it's due. This is a win for America, regardless of how you vote, regardless of how hard it is for the Republicans to put a positive spin on it, regardless. It's a win for all of America. And so, we know that the Republicans are rooting for the president to fail. Not really considering that, if the president fails, then there's a great possibility that America fails. But don't believe the hype, ladies and gentlemen. We voted America to this point. Good faith Democrats. Democrats with, strong voting records, with continuous voting records. This is where we bought the country back from the brink. We bought it back from the brink. And the State of the Union is strong. So, beware of any sharp left turns, sharp right turns. That may be a bridge to nowhere. I would suggest that we stay on the path that that we're on. You know, we have the Senate, we have the Oval Office, and we have a president who, although he's pushing 80, he's leading the country. He's making the right moves. He's pushing the right buttons because and this is of great should be of great concern. Unlike the former president, he listens. He listens to his advisors. He reads intelligence reports. He's attentive at briefings. He's not the type of president who has to have flattering lines put into the intelligence reports or his daily briefings just to grab his attention. So, you know, make no mistake about it. The State of the Union is strong. And we have things that are backing the president up. So, you know, we don't just have to take his word for it. Or, you know, if we feel like, well, you know, he could tell me anything. They're leading economists. You know, and in most cases, you can best believe that some of these leading economists are definitely leaning towards Republican affiliation because that's money. So, you know, you just have to take it as somewhat a given. But the bottom line is you have these leading economists, regardless of what political stripe, that, you know, the State of the Union is strong. And, you know, you heard the president say and get Republicans to agree that Social Security and Medicaid would not be touched. They would not try to find a way to end it as we know it. You know, so what does that tell us? What it should not tell us is that, or what it should tell us, as you were, is that there's nothing about these two entitlement programs, if you will, that is going to ruin the nation's economy. Is going to, you know, break the backbones of hardworking everyday Americans now. And, you know, I think that historically, the economy has done better under Democrats, and we have a Democratic president here, you know, fighting hard to protect Social Security and Medicaid. So there can't be no danger. Now here's one thing that's important that I took note of here from a soluble perspective on Tuesday night. The president, you know, while he has the majority in the Senate, and we have the Oval Office, and he has the power of the veto pen, we have no time to rest on our laurels. No time. We have to be ready because we, as I said before, unless we want to go 3 steps forward and then 4 steps backwards, we have to stay ready. Now, the president said something that caught my attention, and it should have, you know, grabbed the attention of every Democratic voter, independent voter, that's you know, looking forward to the next election. The president is practically having to beg, if you will. The president is practically having to beg that everyone pays their fair share. You know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with a little humility. That's good for a leader to have. But the president is almost having to practically beg that everyone pay their fair share. And, you know, this is where the power of the vote should come in, and we need it more than ever. Because it's going to make America better. It's going to make it stronger if everyone pays their fair share. Now, one of the best ways to ensure that happens going forward, so that the president doesn't have to succumb to, you know, begging. He has the power of the veto pen, but we can give him even more power that the veto pen doesn't have by giving him a solid majority. And, you know, you hear the Republicans, you know, when there's a Democrat president and there may be a Democrat House and Senate, one of the first things these rabble rousers want to start to talk about is leaving the country. Oh, I'm leaving. America's not the same anymore. I'm leaving the country. Well, go. We're going to be just as strong. We're going to be fine without you. Now, some of you who feel that way should take note of what happened during the pandemic. At the height of the pandemic, you know, you had a lot of these companies that realized just how good they had it in America, and they was trying to get back home. And, you know, they were caught in log jams. So, as I said, you know, you're going to have the Republicans. That's going to be their first approach, to kick and scream. once we get this majority and keep this majority, where the president doesn't have to beg, we can, have the power of the 2/3 majority to ensure that everyone pays their fair share, and stop looking for corporate loopholes and fictitious ways to write off or whatever way that the American treasury is being robbed by people not paying their fair share. So if you once again, it's in the playbook. You first of all, you're going to hear Republicans begin to scream and holler about leaving the country, and go where? And go where? And do what? Russia's in ruins. COVID's still raging over in China. You're going to leave the best country on earth, one of the best democracies known to mankind. You're going to leave that. Well, go. And that's, that's the backbone and spine that we have to have as Democrats all across the board. We have to have that kind of resolve to not be shaken, not begin to, take these strong, accusations or points that the Republicans are making about leaving and begin to become fearful and begin to back off from what we believe in. Here we have it. The best country. So, it's all just talk. It's all hot air. It's all hot air. But, stepping back for a minute, as I said, the State of the Union, as the president has said, is strong. He wants to do something about prescription drugs. He wants to do something about, the fentanyl crisis that we're having to go through in this country right now. And as soon as the president brings up and points out the fact of how, fentanyl we're under attack from this drug, then the best thing that you can hear a Republican say or a member of the opposing party say is that it's the president's fault. How can that be? How can that be? This is just, built up anger, built up frustration from a party that doesn't know how to produce a winner anymore. That's what this is. And it's up to you, the American people, especially the Democratic voter, not to believe the hype, not to fall for it, not to go for fried ice cream here. It's the president's fault. Who in their right mind would bring up a problem knowing that it's their fault or knowing that the people are going to think it's their fault? These are just things that are being blurted out out of all places, the State of the Union address. No respect for the office. No respect for the office. And so, you see evidence of Trumpism still there. As the great Donna Brazile said, it's clear. It should be clear to the American people that Donald Trump is still the music in the head of many Republicans. You've seen it on full display here. And if you think about before the coming of the former president, before 2016, of course, we had the nation elected the first African-American president. And so, we can understand, there was something blurted out there. I don't remember the congressman in particular, but he said, he told the president, "You lied." He blurted out, "You lied." Another Republican, not surprising. Now, at that time, we're not going to excuse it here at Soluble by no means. As I said, for the love of etiquette and decorum and respect for the office. So we can by no means condone it. But the Republicans were really feeling the weight of the first African-American elected president. They were really feeling the weight. But, other than that, before the former president, this has been ratcheted up and ratcheted up and ratcheted up. And so, you can look and see just how intelligent you were, just how smart you were to only give 4 years. Now, historically, the economy has done better under Democratic leadership. Don't take our word for it here at Soluble. Do you the research, as we have. The economy, once again, has fared better under Democratic leadership historically over the last 50 years. It's done better in Democrat hands than it has Republican. So this is the state of the union. I mean, we still face challenges every day as Americans. But everything that the president touched on relates to moving America forward for, a more perfect union. That's what his job is. And he's doing it to the utmost of his ability. To the utmost of his ability. And you have these cat calls. Marjorie Taylor Greene, with her white fur on, screaming liar. It's such a disgrace. It's such a disgrace. Now, whoever her constituents are, this is a reflection on you. This is a reflection on you. She may have something earmarked for you, maybe some little pet project that gets squeezed into a bill, this, that, and the third, and we get it. But is it really worth it? Is the embarrassment really worth it? To my fellow Georgians, whoever represents that district or lives in that district, is it worth it? Because she's clueless. She's clueless. She has no style, no sophistication about herself, none. And frankly, she's an embarrassment. And her constituents will probably never agree. I mean, we don't begrudge or knock or belittle people from America's rural areas. I mean, I'm from a rural area myself. I grew up on a farm, so I know the hard work that goes on there, the honesty, the integrity, the love for one's neighbors, respect for one's neighbors, church going. But this is a hard reach here with this congresswoman, because she seems to not be able to do anything or know how to do anything but portray a former president who's long faded from the scene. It's like, the country's moved on. And here, you could picture Marjorie Taylor Greene with defibrillator pads, saying clear. And she's constantly trying to resuscitate Trumpism. It's jumping up off the table, but it's flatlining. And there she is. And, no one can tell her that it's time to move on. It's gone. She somehow thinks it can be revived. And that's what she's attempting to do here. And it just really foolishly embarrassing. But, that's the state of the union in a nutshell. The president has said it's strong. We have no other reason to believe otherwise. China's been flying, balloons all around the world. But the president is, when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to decision making, the president is direct. He listens, and he comes to a firm decision based on what he thinks is best for America. Of course, you have the Republicans ranting and raving all of a sudden, because there are reports now that these balloons were floating around during the Trump administration, but all of a sudden now it's all the rage, and the president is weak, and so and so and so and so, and we know what it is. We get it. Things can be going along fine, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's a Chinese balloon floating above Montana, entering into the United States. Yeah, that's a good attack point. That's a good subject to attack on. Attack the Chinese balloon and tie it to Biden. Find some kind of way to tie it to Biden. Anything negative, anything they can do to score political points. Nothing about it, zero, had to do with patriotism or love for one's country or in defense of one's country. These are the links that we will go to. Nothing whatsoever. Now, of course, to the hardcore Republican voter, you're not going to be able to convince them otherwise. And that's not, our mission here at Soluble. What we're trying to do is gin up the Democratic vote each and every chance we get. I mean, you see it here yourself. You see how the Democrats are acting. Excuse me. And you see how the Republicans are acting. When the former President Trump was in office, of course, he got little applause from the Democrats. That's customary in the House during the State of the Union address. That's customary. That's part of the process where, the opposing party sits on their hand claps in opposition or in disagreement. We get that. We get that. But, it was just, it was a sad sight to see. And, what it should do to the Democratic voter is encourage you more. Because if not, you're going to continue to get more and more of the same. The Republican Party has no ideals to lead America forward. They've come to the end of the road of Caucasian First Party. And then, whatever is left over, you can have that, those scraps or whatever. They've come to the end of that road now, and they're desperate. They're making the same case to a dwindling number. They know it, but they're going to stay on message. They're going to double down, hoping they can change some minds, hoping they can, persuade some people to cross over. But they're making the same message. A 30-year-old, 40-year-old, rewrapped, cleaned up and polished off message to a dwindling number. And that's important reason enough for us to stay engaged. Be ready on the next election call if we want to see America continue to progress in the right direction, in a way that America works for all, not some, but all of our citizens. That's the goal. That's the mission. And we have it. It's right here in the palm of our hands. We have the Oval Office and the Senate. A slim, narrow majority do the Republicans hold in the House. A slim, narrow majority. And here's something. Here's something to think about. Now, they have a chance to win some of American voters who are on the fence. They have a chance to win them over. If they take this thin majority, and regardless of how razor thin it is, and do the right thing when it comes to George Santos. Just one major thorn. They have a chance here. So, you take a long look here. Love for one's party or love for one's country. That's where they're at. That's where they're at here. So far, they've chosen the former because Santos is there. He's hanging out at the State of the Union address. I mean, I think it would have made the president a bigger man if he just happened to be walking down the aisle and Santos extended his hand and he gave him the handshake. If more than anything, first and foremost of all, he needs prayer. But, at the same time, there's a job to do here. And there are lives at stake. There are districts here, where people live. And they should be able to get, someone they can trust, someone that they can believe in. And so, here we are, with the Republican majority in the House only, razor thin. If they were true patriots, if they really loved and cared about the country, if they were going to put country first over party, they would do something about this. It's embarrassing, regardless of the political strife, because the world is watching. The world is always watching, trying to find a weakness, trying to find a flaw, trying to find a aha, gotcha moment to say, see, look, democracy is not legitimate. It's just something that they're selling. But what they're selling and what it actually is two different things. And here are the Republicans, a party that has sworn allegiance to America, a party that suggests to the American people that they love their country. Patriotism all the day long. And yet here you have Santos thriving. In what party? The Republican Party. How outlandish is this? There's no excuse for it. But here he is, hanging out at the State of the Union address, grandstanding. There's no shame. There's no shame. Why? Because this is the bar that the former president has set for the Republican Party. And they're meeting the bar. So while the State of the Union is strong, we still have a lot of work to do. We still have a lot of work to do. And, that work can, only be accomplished and get done. It's not hard work, but it is work where we have to have a hands-on approach. And when it comes time to do the work, which, mainly consists of voting and going to the polls and getting your vote out each and every time. That little effort there will get us a long ways. Will get us a long ways. Now, we see what's opposing. We see what's on the opposite side when it comes to the two parties. We have to look at, which party right now is willing to do what's best for America. Not just say that they are. Not just, preach it, but they don't practice it. It's a pivotal moment. The State of the Union is strong, but there's still work to be done. The president acknowledges that. He needs the bills. He needs to, bring for these parties in the House, Senate, what have you, to bring these bills to bear so that we can pass them into law, and like the wise president he is, the smart president he is, he's let Republicans know that if it's their dream to cut Medicaid and Social Security, he's ready to turn it into a nightmare with the veto pen. And rightfully so. They've earned it. They've earned it. And as I said, keep in mind, lest we forget, the president is practically begging that everyone pay their fair share. Now, the only way we're going to make this happen is to keep Democrats in the majority. This is the only way we're going to make this happen, where the president doesn't have to beg or to stay up late at night wondering how he's going to get it done. And as I said, look for it. Once we keep power, once we hold the line of power, and we can get more Democrats in to make sure that everybody's paying their fair share, and everybody, by that I mean everybody is paying their fair share, then the first thing you're going to hear from the Republican side is, people threatening to leave the country. They want to talk succession. Why not just pay your fair share? What's the problem with patriotic Americans paying their fair share? So that's the way it's going to go down. We're going to hold power. You're going to hear them threaten to leave, threaten succession. And that's all it is. It's just empty rhetoric. It's empty rhetoric. Don't believe it. Don't go for it. Don't believe the hype. It's just talk. And that is the first part of our podcast tonight. We're going to take a little deep dive into the State of the Union from a soluble perspective. And that soluble perspective is going to dwell on the state of the people within the union, primarily this 94, 95 percentile of voters, people of color who are voting Democrat. Now, we think the Democratic Party is the lesser of two evils here at Soluble. That's our position. Do they have their flaws? Yes. Have they put legislation in place that have hurt us as African Americans? Yes. But now the State of the Union now is in our hands more than ever. And, we have that power there. And I can't help but to reiterate it constantly, time and time again. Because as I said, 90-something% of something, of anything, anytime you have any one whole object, any one whole subject matter, any one whole piece, and you have 90-something% of that piece missing, you hardly have anything. But and by the same token, if you have a small amount of something, 5% of this or what percent of that, and you add 90-something% to that small margin, it's going to be complete. And so, the State of the Union from a soluble perspective, as it relates to the 90 something percentile, we have the power in our hands. I mean, but what are we going to do to exercise it? Now, we can't wait. We can't wait for others to do it for us. And as I said before, we want to make sure that we're not, excuse me, we want to make sure that we're not getting caught up with finger pointing and blaming others when we're not doing all that we can. And so, the State of the Union now, from a soluble perspective for the 90 something percentile, we still have work to do. The State of the Union within America, from neighborhoods of color all across America, is shattered. They're in trouble. Children's grades. And this is only dealing with, as I said, people of color, the 90 something percentile. Because when we hear that the State of the Union is strong, it's like that's something that we can believe and that we can see, but we can't really touch it. It's rarely tangible to us. Well, we can just really feel it down in our soul. The president says the State of the Union is strong, and then we have to start to begin to look at, okay, where can we find those strong points? Where can we find those strong suits that work for us? And that's not the position that we should be in as a 90 something percentile. Now, going back to the State of the Union, for people of color in this country to a time where slavery ended. Because before that, you had very little control over your destiny, over your own daily lives, over the lives of your children. That was the State of the Union. At the end of the Civil War, you were still there, as far as your idea of the State of the Union, you were still in peril. You were still in danger. You were still living a life where you had to look over your shoulder or be a second-class citizen. And so we're going from then to now. Now, at the start of that war, that Civil War, for those who know their history, there was a lot of talk on both sides about, whose side God was on at the beginning of the war. That was a big talking point. And, we now know what happened as a result of that war. The North won. Was that good enough for the South? To say, because it was basically a thing like, we're gonna fight it out and God's gonna decide, who's on the right side of history here. But when the South lost, did they let go? So from the State of the Union, from a time where you had little to no control to now, where you have all the control, you've endured, you've persevered, and you've made it through the storm. Now, before the Civil War, at the end of the Civil War, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, slavery by another name, where they were trumping up charges against, Negroes in America, creating charges, finding a way to stick it to them some kind of way where they wind up in prison and then, were hired out to plantations to do work, on trumped up charges, thus and such and thus and such, slavery by another name. During all these times, you had very little control, very little to no control over your destiny. It was an uphill battle. The civil rights movement came into being, and the playing field began to level, began to tilt. President Harry S. Truman made the move to integrate the military. And the playing field, begin to level, not at a pace that we would desire, but it began to level. The State of the Union, since the time where, we begin to have more control over our daily lives, more control over our destiny, the world really began to watch, to see for the Negro in America if the promise of freedom was truly indeed for all citizens of all stripes. And as that playing field began to level after Truman integrated the military, the State of the Union for Negroes in America began to progress. And it's in our hands now, starting then to now. Because as I said, we don't want to be in a position where we're finger pointing more than, we're helping ourselves. Because, we have to realize in the state of our union, here's where we are. We've come a long ways. We've definitely come a long ways, but we're here where we are. Our neighborhoods are in shambles. We're still dealing with fair policing in America. We're still having to deal with it. There's inequality in the job market still. All these things, excuse me. Once again, it's in our power to fix it now. So our State of the Union, if we don't see it as strong, or if we see it where it's strong, it can only be stronger, then it's on us now. It's in the hands of said Negro citizens to make it better. We have the State of the Union when it comes to farmers in America who are people of color. Here a couple of years back, there was legislation introduced to compensate these farmers for the shortcomings or for the discriminatory loaning practices that were going on years and years ago, sometimes during droughts. And, these farmers lost a lot. These Negro farmers in America lost a lot. And soon as this legislation begins to come forward, then, you have Republicans now on the other side saying that, well, this is reverse discrimination. How? If, the farmers before or their families before, they got their money, they got their loans, their farm survived. And now here you have a package, a financial package set up for farmers who happen to be people of color who never got anything. And they're able to stall the legislation. They're able to, hold the money up on something trumped up as far as, this is reverse discrimination. This is racism by another name. And nothing can be further from the truth. So the State of the Union, as far as America goes, is strong. We can rest assured on that. But let's look at the State of the Union from a colored perspective in America and the things that we have going on in our everyday lives, in our neighborhoods. We're going to have to take a more active approach to strengthen the state of our union. We're going to have to take a more active approach. AI, which is artificial intelligence, is fast approaching. What is going to be the state of the Negro Union in America if we don't get on top of this? If we don't come to this realization that, we have to find a way to play a major role, a major part in educating ourselves. No one's going to do it for us. And, we don't want it to be where all of a sudden AI comes to bear. I mean, it's already in some places, checkout counters, restaurant kiosks, and things like that. So it's already beginning to emerge. But as time goes by, AI will become a bigger and bigger part of our everyday lives. The State of the Union, from a soluble perspective, as it relates to the 90-something percentile. If, the State of the Union, from your point of view, is still on shaky ground, you have the power to make it stop shaking. And we have to take accountability for our own actions, first and foremost. And, we wouldn't be doing you any good service if we didn't, as a podcast who's trying to solve, we wouldn't be doing you, any service to not tell you like it is there. We're going to have to take accountability. There was a time where, there was the Tulsa massacre in Oklahoma, where, the Black Wall Street was reduced to ashes. In large part, Negroes' hands were tied then. Now that's not the same story. So, you know, we can't expect even Democrats in America from all broad stripes, from all across the parties to you know launch this, to fully support this. We have to be the ones to get it moving off the ground. And then they'll come along. We as people of color, for the things that we've lost, for the tragedies that we've suffered, where you know there's been no reimbursement, there's been no acknowledgement by the nation that these things have happened. So that state of the union, or that state of mind that we have towards the union, we have the power to fix it now. You know, we're not bound by racial chains, chains of discrimination. And as I've said before, you know, this is a nothing ventured, nothing gained to improve our state of union. You know, our children are behind, you know, when it comes to the subject matters of math, science, reading, compared to other races in this country and around the world. You know, the state of the union in the home, the parent is lacking. This is where accountability comes in at. You know, our young women are oftentimes pregnant with child too early. Our young men are walking around with their pants hanging around their knees, not knowing anything, having hit a set of headphones on. We're going to have to take responsibility for that. Excuse me. Or what is the state of the union? What is the continual state of the union? So while we're here in the year 2023, February of 2023, look at the state of the union there. If the state of American union is strong, then the state of Negro America, the union should be strong. And if not, it's evident that we have work to do. We have work to do. And, you know, the responsibility lies at our feet. And this is the least that Soluble can do. If there's more to do, we're willing. But this is the least that we can do, is to bring it to your attention. You know, the mistakes that we make here at Soluble, the things that we can use of our own personal experiences to show that, you know, we don't think we're better than anyone else. We're not trying to finger point here. We're not trying to call anyone out. But, you know, we have to speak for those who don't have a voice. We have to make it better now for those who have tragically left and are on the other side, you know, through tragedy, through injustice in America. It's going to be up to us to make sure there's never another George Floyd or Tyree Nichols. It's going to be up to us. So the state of the union from a Soluble perspective to the 90-something percentile. Either you're in or you're out. But you can't make excuses, because, as I said, the responsibility lies at your feet. Don't be, you know, misled. Don't be confused. We have to take responsibility. That's the bottom line. You know, that race of people, that group of people so long ago, in the time of the pilgrimage, in the time of the journey to the promised land. If we know anything of the word, we know that was, excuse me, in the words of the Almighty, we know that was a stiff-necked people. And, you know, that's the vibe we're getting here at Soluble, as far as Negroes in America. We can be a stiff-necked people. But if we can get over that, we can make our state of the union stronger also. But we have to stand up and take accountability. You know, that seems so hard to do, but it's the right thing to do. This is a path that if you're refusing, this is the path that you should be choosing, the path of accountability. So, you know, we don't want to watch a State of the Union address where what the president is talking about, you know, looks nothing like the America that we see and experience every day. Because we have the power now. It's just, you know, can you harness it Can you harness that power and use it in the right way? Right now, the State of the Union, coming from the Commander in Chief, is strong. That's the word that he used to describe the Union. Coming from the Commander in Chief, the State of the Union is strong. And so, we have a 90-something percentile of people of color who have played a major role in voting this president in. And so, if the president feels that the State of the Union is strong, we should be able to see the same thing in our daily lives. We should be able to see the same thing. And if not, then, the responsibility lies with us. We bear the responsibility. If it's not, now we do. Because as I said, there was a time back, slavery, Reconstruction, indentured servitude, Jim Crow. When a lot of those situations, a lot of those cases, our hands were tied. No more. No more. And we don't want to use that as an excuse, where it's one of these things where, when all else fails, blame the white man. That would no longer work. Our goal here at Soluble is to hold accountable, especially us, especially other Negroes, people of color in America, because it would be weak and foolish of us as a people to not harness all the power that we can and use it. And then once we've done that, once we've harnessed the power, once we use it to rock the vote and get America working for us, and there's a disruption, there's an attempted coup, insurrection, then of course we have to take another approach. But until that time comes, or until that happens, we have the best weapon now, which is the vote. The ballot box is the hill to die on. It is the hill to die on. And as I said, after all else fails, then we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So our goal here at Soluble is to, in bringing up the State of the Union and a soluble perspective, is to solve it where, as I said, if the president says that the State of the Union is strong, then the state of the union in our everyday lives, our unions, those of us who always feel like we're fighting with one hand behind our back, or we're fighting an uphill battle, that is over now. So if our State of the Union right now, in our everyday neighborhoods where there are people of color, if the state of our neighborhood unions are not strong, then it's something that we're doing. That's what I'm simply stating here. Now, whatever it is, that's a talking point for another day. And I'm sure there will be plenty of input to be had for that discussion. But the bottom line is the fact that it's in our hands. And, once we've done everything in our power, organized, voted, push for the changes that we want to see. Once we've done all those things and there's still an uphill battle, then of course we can come together even stronger, even further to make it happen. But know that there is power in the persuasion. All voices being a voice of one. And that's our goal going forward. If the State of the Union is strong in America, then the State of the Union from the Negro perspective, from the 90-something percentile who are voting for Democrats, we have the power. And the State of the Union is strong. Okay, so let's take a look at, how we can translate that into our everyday lives. How do we see that strength in our everyday lives as a people inside a nation? And if we don't like what we see, then, we have work to be done. Blame, nothing, that's no solution. There's no solution there. Personal responsibility, personal accountability is going to put the State of the Union from a soluble perspective for the 90-something percentile people of color that vote Democrat. The State of the Union is only going to be strong because we made it that way. And now we have the power to do so. So let's harness it. Let's use it the right way. And we think at the end of the day that will take away all the pain, the suffering, the frustration. The playing field is more level than ever before. It's more level than ever before. And to get it that other 5 degrees, tilt or whatever, we're gonna have to rock the vote. We're gonna have to rock the vote. We see the power of it. We see the effectiveness of it. So that's one way. That's we feel is the main way to harness your power, use it to your advantage, and then we should not have to feel as if we're always fighting an uphill battle here, or we're in a mind state where we've come a long way, but we have a long ways to go. So the strong hearts, brave hearts, sharp thinkers to the front. We need you now more than ever to the front. Because if the State of the Union is strong, then we want it to be strong all across America, in every political stripe, but especially in our neighborhoods, especially in our everyday lives, as far as basing it on where we've come from to where we are now. Because as I said, we come from a place in time where we had little to no control to now where we have all the control. And we didn't get here alone. This wasn't just a wave of a magic wand. This was not just, because a generation created hip hop and it became a powerful influence in America. This battle was being fought way before we were born. And the fact that we're still in the thick of it is evident that we need to be the ones to get it together and bring it to bear and take it across the finish line now with a more level playing field than we've ever experienced before in this country. It's going to be up to us, the people. So if the State of the Union for America is strong, then we want the State of the Union for especially people of color in this country to be strong, for that 90-something percentile. And so if we're voting in that higher percentage and the union is strong, then we should be strong too, all across the board, in our everyday lives, our neighborhoods, jobs, whatever, in our everyday functions, shopping in stores, equal treatment, visiting public places, boarding airplanes, our Black farmers, fairness in sentencing laws, equal justice. We should be, strong in all those areas, the state of our union. It should be strong. It should be confident because we have the voting percentage to our advantage. But now let's see if we can use it. So that's the conclusion as far as this podcast, State of the Union, and the State of the Union from a soluble perspective. We have the power to make it strong and keep it strong, but only if we harness the power and use it in the right way. We thank you for joining us tonight for this podcast. We hope that we've been able to shed light on the current state of affairs when it comes to the State of the Union, what we can do as a voting bloc to make it better for us in our everyday lives. Join us on tomorrow, if you would, please. Tomorrow is issue day. We're going to discuss food in America. Food in America for tomorrow, Friday, February 11th, as far as issue day is concerned. This is Soluble. We thank you for joining us tonight. And we, as always, we hope we can be informative, and we hope that we can continue to encourage you to rock the vote, preferably the Democrat vote. And we beg to differ if there's anyone who thinks that the other party is better. We're looking for that. We're looking for you to show us, because at the end of the day, we should all want America to be a better place for us all. So thank you for joining us. We look forward to bringing you future broadcasts that are always eye-opening and enlightening. Because at the end of the day, if there's anything that has to do with political friction, turmoil, here is Soluble. And our attempt is to solve it, to make, American politics a better place, a better way of doing things when it comes to solving, when it comes to legislation in this country, to take it from where it was to a better place, and never let it return to that place of bipartisan bickering, bitterness, finger pointing, name calling, and all the things that don't make for good politics. So we look forward to keeping you informed and bringing you the latest in political information, political news goings on in America in the coming future. This is Soluble. We thank you for joining us tonight. God bless. Until we see you again, this is Soluble. Thank you. Good night.